Warning, this video contains spoilers for Mario & Luigi Brothership, so if you haven't beaten the game yet, be warned. So, yeah, we know about Reclusa, one of the most interesting and crazy Mario villains that was a very interesting surprise at the end of Mario & Luigi Brothership. But we don't really know much about his backstory. We know that he destroyed other worlds in the past, and is capable of quite a lot, but we don't really know about how he is or where he came from. So that's what we wanted to discuss in this video, and joining me today is Fawful the Great 64.
Hello!
But before we get started, I wanted to mention that I have a goal to hit 30,000 subscribers before the Switch 2 launches. So if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing, and if I hit that goal, I will give away a copy of the new Mario Kart game. So yeah, let's get into our backstory and headcanon about how Reclusa came to be and where he came from. But I think you had a pretty good idea in mind, Fawful the Great.
Yeah, so one day Reclusa was making a grilled cheese, and he inadvertently burnt his house down, and then he just hated the universe, and that's why he is how he is.
Yep, that's the true, definitive backstory to Reclusa, as stated by the Mario Anything bot. But, in all seriousness though, we have a pretty interesting idea for Reclusa's backstory that actually involves Dimentio from Super Paper Mario. And before anyone in the comments says, oh, Dimentio's from the Paper World, the Paper Mario series isn't canon. The Paper Mario series is canon. There is a lot of evidence to back that up that we have a whole video about if you're interested in checking it out. And I'll leave the description down below. But there really isn't any conflicts with Dimentio existing in the regular Mario universe, because there is a lot of evidence of, like, all the events from the classic Paper Mario games being canon.
Oh, definitely. Like, there's some of the characters have appeared in some of the games in the early 2000s and stuff, so, like, I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't be able to factor in characters from those games.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go ahead and start to get into the backstory. So basically, my idea is that Reclusa comes from the same dimension as Dimentio, and they were originally friends. I had the idea that Dimentio came to Reclusa's dimension, but I find that the idea of him being from the same dimension as Dimentio to be, like, a little more interesting. So basically, Reclusa essentially served as Dimentio's henchmen, and they were trying to take over the world. And in the process, Dimentio gave Reclusa access to some of his powers and abilities, so he was able to travel between dimensions and create, like, simulated pocket dimensions. Though, once Dimentio achieved his goal of taking over the world, he completely destroyed the entire dimension, betraying Reclusa in the process, leaving Reclusa alone in an empty void. And this led Reclusa alone, with everything that he ever knew completely destroyed. And it led him into believing that bonds and friendships were a curse and were wrong and needed to be destroyed. And when Dimentio destroyed Reclusa's dimension, it also destroyed Reclusa's physical form, so the only reason he survived was because of his dimensional abilities. So after this, Reclusa traveled to different dimensions, being reborn as an egg each time. In each universe, his form changes slightly, which is why the Concordian Reclusa could appear to be made of electrical components. And I even made a mock-up of a Super Paper Mario Dimentio-styled Reclusa.
Yeah, so, like, the idea that... because Reclusa and Dimentio share a lot of traits, and I think part of what makes Reclusa so appealing is that he kind of appeals to some of those same tropes that Dimentio did, but with, you know, his own sort of thing. Reclusa just kind of hates bonds, hates friendships, and I feel like trying to be friends with Dimentio would do that to anyone.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's like, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, just even, like, with the Dementio element of it, like, I'm just thinking, like, Reclusa, it just makes so much sense that his backstory would surround, like, once having a friend, that ended up betraying him. Like, it just kind of, that really seems like something that would happen to, like, a character that hates, like, bonds and friendships and things. It really seems like a character that is, like, very, I guess, no pun intended, reclusive would kind of, be like.
Yeah, and then there's like also the whole deal where basically they both kind of use plants to kind of mind control to control people, and like Recluse's flowers trap people and basically force them to believe that they're in a different reality. And Dementio also uses the Flora Sprouts by taking them from King Crocus, but like I honestly feel like the fact that Dementio refers to King Crocus as a acquaintance makes me wonder if maybe both Reclusa and Dementio had a prior connection to the Flora Sapiens, and
Yeah.
like with the how heavily Reclusa uses flowers, um, and that's also kind of what happened with the Flora Sapiens. What they did to the Kragnons, they kind of just turned them into zombies using plants. Um, and I, part of it is just, a good story and a good story. I'm gonna try to connect them, but like Brothership really does feel like the Mario and Luigi equivalent of Super Paper Mario, so there's a lot of parallels to be drawn, and it's fun to think about how they could be connected, even if it's not something Nintendo would ever explore.
Yeah, like, just with Brothership, like, inherently being, like, a kind of, like, a universe within the general Mario multiverse, kind of like how, it's kind of, like, Concordia is kind of, like, similar to the Super Paper Mario dimensions in a way, just with how it's, like, all the characters have, like, a very different style to them compared to, like, Mario's world, but it's also, like, connected to Mario's world as well. Like, Mario and Luigi, like, they kind of have that, like, that bond is kind of, and also, since we're talking about spoilers, I was like, we could also mention, like, the Great Conductor as well, who, like, sent Mario and Luigi there. He kind of sensed the Mario world with, like, Mario and Luigi. So it's kind of almost similar to, like,
And also,
the light
and
prognosticus in a way.
yeah, and also just the fact that Brothership has all these reefs that are references to other Mario and Luigi games, which did take place in the same dimension as the Mushroom Kingdom, um, suggests to me that there's at least somebody in Concordia, perhaps the Great Conductor himself, who has long had an awareness of Mario's world.
Yeah,
Because why else would there be a reef that is just blatantly shaped like Prince Peasley?
yeah.
Like
Like, and it would make
that wouldn't naturally occur. I don't think that would naturally occur. Someone made that. Someone made that
yeah.
Zkeeper. Someone made that Shroob reef.
Honestly,
Um,
I saw this one, like, comic one time about, like the Great Conductor and the Zkeeper being roommates. And I thought that was
I think
pretty
I
funny.
saw that too.
That just
Oh
makes
my
so much
god,
sense
they're
since the
so
Great.
similar.
Yeah, they're like, I remember, like, when I first found out about the Great Conductor, I was like, oh, this is basically like the Concordian version of the Zkeeper. I was like, I feel like the Great
And
Conductor was really, like, inspired by that.
and you know what else? The Zkeeper also canonically has the power to transcend dimensions, not even just the dream world. When you're fighting him, he literally Dreambert comments on it and says he transcends the dimensions. So
Yeah,
I feel like that could also potentially tie into the whole dimension thing, where
yeah,
like and then when you start to get to that, you might want to try to come up with ways to tie Antasma into this. But that we're kind of getting a little sidetracked there.
Yeah,
But I do really want to believe that they're all connected,
yeah, and
except Paper Jam. Screw Paper Jam. We don't talk about Paper Jam.
Paper Jam happens within like a torture pocket dimension that Dementio has. But
Yeah.
I guess like
Speaking of, I just wanted to mention, because you mentioned like a torture pocket dimension and stuff. It just made me think of how what Reclusa does in the late game of Brothership when he traps Mario and Luigi in the simulated Mushroom Kingdom. That is scarily accurate to a fan fiction that I had been bouncing around in my head for years. That was designed to like explain how modern Paper Mario could exist in a timeline from classic Paper Mario. And in
I've
that,
had an idea like that before.
and it was basically like it was a timeline where Dementio wins, and instead of just straight up killing the heroes, he instead decides to keep them alive for eternity and torture them in his own carefully crafted kind of quarantine world, where he creates a painfully sanitized version of their world where they are doomed to just do the same thing over and over for eternity and never have any variation and just always only talk to the same characters, the same toads, and like this primarily focuses on Sticker Star because there are some things in Color Splash and Origami King that wouldn't really fit this. They do some things that are more bold than just the status quo. But like the idea that Sticker Star, and I would say Paper Jam, put Paper Jam in that too. Like the idea that those take place in an alternate timeline where they failed to defeat Dementio at the end of Super Paper Mario. And perhaps in that timeline, maybe Reclusa is like also somehow involved. Like maybe Dementio gets Reclusa. It wouldn't be the same plot that we were talking about because like in the one we were talking about before, Reclusa would have already had his world destroyed and already not like Dementio.
Yeah.
But just the idea of what Reclusa did in Brothership is so eerily similar to that thing. I had this in my mind since like Sticker Star.
Yeah.
I developed it in my mind over time. Part of me really wanted to even make an animation of it. I kind of wanted to make it a music video featuring the sound of silence. I don't know. That was in my head, but
Yeah.
it never happened. But then Nintendo straight up did something that was like literally almost exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's like the fact that Reclusa straight up did something that I always headcanoned or had a fanfic in my head about Dementio doing really strengthens their similarities to me.
Yeah, and also
And
I wanted to mention with Reclusa, like the fact that like another similarity kind of going back into our like theory, the fact that Reclusa does have like even though they're not like full pocket dimensions like Dementio has, it is like a similar idea of like trapping someone into like a simulated reality. I didn't like my idea of that is that like Reclusa like gained that ability from Dementio, but he didn't fully like Dementio didn't give him all of the abilities to create like a full pocket dimension, so he could really just only create a simulated reality, kind of like the Matrix, where he could like kind of put like anyone into, and he like used that in Brothership, obviously, like with the flowers and everything.
yeah,
So that's like another connection thing that I've kind of had.
and now that I'm thinking about that again, I'm trying to think about how exactly it worked because we know that Reclusa, his idea of what these flowers do is it isolates the people that the flowers get. It isolates them from everyone else around them. It basically forces them into isolation. And yet, when Mario and Luigi get caught by it, they are still aware of each other and can communicate with each other within this world. And you would think, because they're in separate flowers, so you would think that they would each be isolated in their own separate simulation. And there's also Snoutlet, but I guess with Snoutlet, he's in Luigi's hat, so it makes sense that he would be in the same simulation as Luigi.
I'm also thinking that, like, what if it was because of the connection, like, that they had from the Great Conductor? I wonder if it had anything to do with that. Like, they had some kind of special bond that couldn't be broken, like, immediately by the flowers. I'm just thinking, like,
yeah,
what if it possibly is because of that?
That's probably what made the difference for them being able to escape on their own, whereas no one else was able to.
Yeah, and I think just that fact also makes it even more, like, the Great Conductor bringing Mario and Luigi into the world, and the fact that they have that power makes it even more similar to, like, the Light Prognosticus in a way. Like, it's like Mario and Luigi were, like, destined to stop Reclusa. And that, I'm just thinking, like, that connects to Dimentio and everything. Like, they're destined to stop, like everything in Super Paper Mario. But then, like, at the same time, they're also destined to stop Reclusa. So I'm just wondering, like, if these, like, all connected away. Like, it's just Mario that is, like, destined to stop, like either, like, Count Bleck and Dimentio, and then Reclusa. It's just, it's really interesting. Like, it kind of, like, lines up.
Part of me thought that maybe the simulation in Brothership is entirely from Luigi's... Oh, goodness. Is entirely from Luigi's perspective. Because that would be the only way Snoutlet would be there, is if it was from Luigi's perspective, because Snoutlet is sharing it with Luigi, and the Mario you're controlling isn't the real Mario. But I don't know. I actually like the idea that they just have a strong enough bond to be connected regardless.
Yeah.
Even better.
Because they break out of it at the same time, so I think they would, like, I think they would be, like, both in the same simulation.
Oh, and that just reminds me, oh my god, that Peach's Castle segment is so good. It's like the B3313-ass scenario. Every copy is personalized. Like, I would have never expected Nintendo to officially release something that was clearly inspired by that stuff.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I was just thinking, like, Origami King did that, like, a tiny bit. Probably not, like, it was probably a coincidence with, like, the Mario 64 stuff, but, like, Origami King walked with that so Brothership could sprint in terms of that, like, whole creepy
it makes me wonder if the idea of Nintendo releasing just completely going all in and releasing a full existential dread, an existential horror Mario game that's, like, not graphic with blood and stuff, but it's clearly made for that creepypasta audience.
Yeah.
Like, that would go so hard.
Yeah. that would be amazing. Like, if it was a Mario...
I feel like Nintendo, like, they got away with it in a Mario RPG. That does not mean they would get away with having an entire game where that's the selling point.
I honestly,
I wouldn't get away with a lot of things in the RPGs.
I wouldn't mind a whole Mario RPG surrounded by that. I think Paper Mario could do it. Like, I think they could do something like that in Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi. I just think the way that, like, Paper Mario has things, like, they could almost do, like, a Super Paper Mario-esque thing, but have it, like...
I think the way the Void was portrayed in Super Paper Mario kind of leaned into that kind of thing. Of course, that was before the whole every copy of Mario 64 is personalized became a thing. So that wasn't really inspired by any, like, actual fan memes or fan creepypastas around the Mario series at the time. It was really just Nintendo allowing that much boldness, allowing their second-party developers to take the Mario series in that bold of a direction And unfortunately, at that time, I feel like Nintendo wasn't ready to roll with that, and they immediately afterwards just dialed back, just immediately put the reins on hard, especially on Paper Mario.
Yeah.
But like the way all the stuff with the void in Super Paper Mario, the way Samus Kingdom gets destroyed, the way you go back and it's just a white nothing, and there's a failing heart monitor in the music.
Yeah.
It's just immaculate. I never realized just how amazing that music was until later. Like as a kid, I was just like, "Oh, that's creepy and unsettling. I want to get out of here as fast as possible because this music is going to give me nightmares." But once someone pointed out that there's a heart monitor in it, and once I started learning to actually pay attention to like the sound design on a more um, analytical angle, Super Paper Mario's whole soundtrack really is just immaculate in terms of sound design and the way that the creepy tracks mix in stuff like that is just and I think Brothership did the whole classic Mario music but creepy just amazing.
Yeah, all the music, that whole Reclusa simulation sequence, that was just amazing. Like, it just, like,
the way they had that classic Mario 3 music, and they just progressively, slowly fucked it up.
Yeah, they just, like, it just made, like, just the way they did it, like, it just sounds just, like, so impactful with how they did. And then also, like, at the end with, like, the whole creepy Peach segment at the very end, like, it's like, they do the
hallway.
whole, the distorted Peach's Castle theme. That is just amazing.
Yes.
It definitely has a
That's the
similar...
part that felt the most. That's the part that felt the most like B3313, I think. Just
also, I think
Peach's Castle hallway.
I think
but
it's
like liminal.
I think it's a missed opportunity. I mean, all of it was amazing, that whole segment, but, like, there's one missed opportunity with that segment that I think they should have had a game over screen if you decided to stay in the world. Kind of similar to Thousand Year Door, how when you, like, accept be the Shadow Queen's servant, they should have had something, like, where, like, everything, like, you go back into the world, but everything starts getting even creepier. It just, like, slowly fades into, like, white, like, the world of nothing. And it just, like, it just gets glitchier and glitchier, and then, like, there's, like, static CRT filter that starts to fade in, and it just, like, turns to static at, like, the very end, and you just get a game over. That would be a very impactful game over screen. They really should have... Honestly, imagine if they had a time limit in that area. Maybe not, like, a super strict time limit, but just for effect. That, like, everything... Like, if you decide to stay in the world for a little bit, everything just slowly starts distorting until, like, it does the whole static thing that I was talking about. Like, effectively, if you get that game over, Mario would basically be dead. And Luigi from being in that simulation. Just, like, imagine if they did that.
And just imagine if when the game over happened, it showed Mario and Luigi's lifeless bodies dangling from the flowers.
Oh, that would be crazy. Yeah, like it does the static thing, and then like it pans over that like area, and it's showing that like that would be crazy. I think it's like slightly a bit like, even though the whole segment was just like really impactful, I think they should have done something like that.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder, where's the hard line for Nintendo? Like they definitely still have a line that they don't want to cross, and I personally feel like that line should just be like graphic blood and stuff. Don't do any of that. Don't do like actual explicit things that will like actually things that kids should not ever see. But existential stuff, like they shouldn't be afraid to show a limp body.
Yeah,
and
like
let you draw the conclusions of what happened there.
Yeah, like, do you see the stuff that kids are interested in nowadays? Like, it's like like there's a lot of like really popular horror games that are popular like with kids and everything. So I don't really think that would be
Yeah,
like too big of an issue.
and the reason I feel like Nintendo still is hesitant is because look at what they did with Mario versus Donkey Kong. They replaced all the death animations where Mario just his body crumples to the floor in the original, or he burns to death, and his charred remains are just sitting there on the level. And
Yeah.
they basically took all of those and said, nope, 3D World Death animation, all of them 3D World Death animation.
Yeah. But I wanted to get
It's
back.
like,
Yeah, I wanted to get back into like talking about the connection between Reclusa and Dementio. But like with the I was also thinking like about the Dark Prognosticus because I think like a lot of people have made the theory that it was written by Dementio, but I think it would be interesting if it like tied into this in some way, like maybe like the whole time Dementio was working with Reclusa, he was just gaining like all the power and abilities that he could from that world, just to, like move on, and like eventually like write the Dark Prognosticus like right before he like destroyed everything in his own and Reclusa's universe. I think that would have been pretty interesting if like if we kind of tied that scenario into it as well.
oh yeah, like I'm trying to think. Imagine if no, that wouldn't work. I was starting to think, what if Reclusa wrote the Dark Prognosticus?
I think the only possibility that could work if he wrote it alongside Dementio. But it's probably like more along the lines of like just Dementio. But I do think the Dark Prognosticus could have been a key scenario to like the fact that like he betrayed Reclusa and everything.
Yeah, and I feel like also the Dark Prognosticus and just the message that it puts forth might have played a role in the way Reclusa developed in that direction of just hating everything.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that it has like a corrupting influence on people, and so if Reclusa was exposed to the Dark Prognosticus when he was working with Dementio a lot, then like that would have stuck out in his mind, and after Dementio betrayed him, he would basically probably have the memories of all the nihilistic stuff in the Dark Prognosticus would just
Yeah.
fuel those emotions and the desire that nothing the why should he care about anyone else? Why should he care about any having a connection with anyone? Why should he care about letting anyone else thrive and have connections?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought of another possibility as well, like with kind of going along Dementio's and Reclusa's like connection that they had in their universe. Imagine, like, I think it would be interesting because it would contrast with Mario. Well, I guess it would kind of connect the Mario and Luigi a little bit. But imagine if they were brothers.
Oh. I can kind of see it just in their design elements.
Like,
I feel like that, like Reclusa probably looked different though before. Like I would imagine if they were brothers. Well, here's the thing though. Dementio also always wears a mask, so I'm trying to think. Like, I don't really know what the nature of Dementio's mask is. Is it actually his face, or does he have a face underneath of it?
I don't know. I always assumed that it was just his face, kind of like how because it kind of resembles like the Phantos in Super Mario Bros. 2, or like the Jester enemies in
Yeah.
Super Mario
So
RPG.
So I'm wondering if maybe Reclusa, in his original form before his physical form was destroyed, if he looked like Dementio, like maybe just with Reclusa's colors, like the the blue and yellow eyes, as opposed to like the black and yellow.
Yeah.
And maybe the screen part of his design is part of the electrical stuff that he got from being born in Concordia.
Yeah, that was part of my theory, like, with the fact that every universe he goes to, he would develop, like, different traits from, like, the members of that universe. Like, if he was in Mario's world, like, he would look more like, he would probably either look like a Mario human, or maybe if he was in the Mushroom Kingdom specifically. Imagine if he was a toad or something like that. That would just...
We are so overdue for some genuinely evil toads. Like, why are they so afraid to make an evil toad that's actually, like, not just something else in disguise? Well, I guess if it was Reclusa, it also wouldn't actually be a toad. But,
Yeah.
like Reclusa's actual physical line doesn't change throughout Brothership. When he's defeated in the end, he still has the same body that he had when we first met him. So, in that scenario, we would be beating a toad to death, and that would be euphoric.
Also, have you seen the
but,
concept? Like, on the topic of evil toads, have you seen the concept that I made for like a corrupted toad? I don't want to get into much of the details, but it was like a time travel experiment gone wrong,
where his like mushroom cap was like fading out and into digital pixels.
Yeah. Like...
Yeah, I think I saw that.
But yeah, I think
I
like...
saw you made like a Thousand Year Door remake styled version of it.
Yeah. But something like that would be pretty cool if we ever do get like an evil toad. But I also thought of it also, going back to the whole Dementio design and Reclusa design thing, when you mentioned that, like, the fact that Dementio could have a mask, I thought of this really funny idea. Imagine if under his mask was like this super realistic, creepy face. Like this.
Oh my god. Oh. You know what's ironic? I think... I don't know if you remember the drawing I posted. It's called Welcome to My World. It was a remake of something I drew in 2014, but I redrew it in 2024. It was just a bunch of characters from my fandoms in color. And I did a comparison of what it looked like back then and then. But little known fact about that drawing, on the back of that same sheet of paper is a drawing of that cursed toad. Like, so, yeah.
Or even worse. Remember this? Remember, Charlie Chapters?
Oh.
Imagine if Dementio looked like, or possibly Reclusa looked like that under their mask.
Oh my goodness! Like all this flesh. Who thought designing a book made of flesh? Oh. Oh my god.
But by the way, for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, this is a show from like the late 90s and early 2000s. Like an educational series about like how to handle or use books. And I watched it as a kid because they showed it at my school. And we did a video last year reacting to episodes of it. So it's in this description if you want to check it out. But it's really creepy.
Yeah, it's a book made out of flesh. Like, who thought that was an appealing design for any kind of show, much less a children's show?
Yeah.
Like, that feels straight up something out of a horror thing. Like, if it was a horror parody of kids' shows.
Yeah. But anyways, I think we're getting a little carried away with our discussion about Recluse and Dementio, but I definitely think it's a pretty good headcanon to have that, like, they would be connected, and I think that would be a pretty cool backstory. I know Nintendo isn't gonna do anything with it, but, like, I do think that is a pretty cool and fun headcanon to have, because it doesn't really contradict anything, and it would just, like, work really well.
Oh yeah, like, if Paper Jam locked in and also released after Brothership, that would be where it went.
Yeah. But anyways, did you have anything more to say?
Not really. This. I've always been a sucker for connecting characters that I like from the Mario RPGs and just imagining how they could be connected in a singular story.
Yeah.
That's part of why Paper Jam was so disappointing to me, because that was the potential I think it had to actually bring together Paper Mario lore and Mario and Luigi lore. And it just didn't. And I don't think we're ever going to get the chance again.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope we do, though.
If, like, with the direction that the Mario RPGs are going in, like, the fact that they're bringing all of them back and, like, kind of just, like, emphasizing the fact that they exist and, like, just releasing so many of them, I do think there is a chance, at least, that we could get something like that sometime in the future. I do think the chances are higher now than, like, a few years ago. So I'm just hoping they do something.
I do feel, though, like, if they do go back and do it, excuse me, if they do go back and do it, then they should probably make it an alternative canon, just because otherwise so many of the best characters from the series, including Reclusa, Dimentio, Fawful, would all just kind of be locked out of being able to show up unless they came up with a really good way to revive them. And I kind of don't think that... I did come up with an idea of a possible pipeline to reviving Fawful, but that's a whole other discussion. It was kind of inspired by the Owl House, of all things.
You know, funnily enough, Reclusa, do you know Reclusa's whole, like, throughout Brothership, the whole Reclusa revival thing is actually eerily similar to kind of like a really funny idea that I had about a Mario and Luigi game that revives Fawful. Basically, Fawful possesses Waluigi and tries to bring Fawful back to life. it's like, it's an easy...
That is kind of similar to my idea. My idea was kind of like, I don't know, you haven't seen the Owl House, have you?
I haven't.
Okay, so I'm not really going to get into specifics about that. All I will say is, there is a character who at one point does something similar to what Fawful does, like, consumes so much of this dark, forbidden power that it eventually overtakes and becomes his whole existence, and he doesn't even have his original physical form anymore. People who have seen this show know what I'm talking about. People who don't, I don't think this is specific enough to be a big spoiler. But that form gets destroyed, but just a bit of it remains, and he's able to slowly crawl back by possessing different people. And he never fully gets his actual physical form back. But, like, he hangs on for so much longer after he should be dead, just because the form that overtook his body and became what he is now, no longer even resembling his past self, is something that's, like, corrosive and able to enter into, like, bloodstream and mind control and possess people. And I think if that happened to Fawful, I think it would probably start with Bowser, because that's where Fawful exploded inside of Bowser. So imagine if when Fawful exploded in Bowser, his essence entered Bowser's bloodstream, but it took a long time for it to slowly start taking hold.
That's a really interesting idea. Yeah.
And I even drew like some fan art of like what it could look like. I drew both what this reformed Fawful that still isn't his original form, but like reformed after he gained enough energy to reform in some scenario. I drew what that would look like, and then I also drew what Mario, Luigi, and Bowser would look like under this possession.
Yeah. But I think
and
that's
I actually am kind of proud of what I did with Mario's mustache. Mario and Luigi's mustache. I actually made it. The mustaches are made of black goop. Because that's kind of what Fawful was made of in the end, like this black goop. So.
Yeah,
But anyway, I'm getting way off tangent here. But that kind of is what tends to happen when you get me talking about Mario lore.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, I think the idea of, like, Reclusa and Dimentio being connected is just really cool, and I just think it's, like, a pretty fun idea to have. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to Fawful the Great, and subscribe and check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!
Bye-bye.